Fortunately, spawning bettas is not that difficult, and most of you will accomplish it with ease. However, next comes the unfortunate stage that most new breeders will struggle with. I would have to say that this next stage deters most new breeders to give up or lose interest. If you decide to stop, don't feel bad. I've been there plenty of times. Take a few months break, enjoy the bettas you already have, reset, and then go at it again. The eggs will hatch within 24 to 48 hours depending on the water temperature. If you keep your tank between 80 to 83 degrees and humid, they'll hatch within 24 hours. You'll know they've hatched because you'll see their tiny little tails hanging from the nest. Some will fall, and if the father's in the tank, he'll bring them right back up to the nest. If the father was removed, the water should have been lowered to 2 inches, and don't worry about the eggs that are on the ground. If they're fertilized, they'll hatch. And leave them alone. That, my friends, is the biggest secret for the first couple of days. This is a hybrid giant koi male that I'm trying to remove out. He has a history of eating his eggs, so I don't want him in with his eggs. Since I've removed the male, he's no longer in the tank to eat the unfertilized eggs or take care of the eggs so they don't mold. I'm using my fingers to split up the eggs so that they don't mold, because eggs that are stuck together tend to mold and will not hatch. Fries are born with a yolk sac that they'll feed off on for the next few days. So don't feed them, because the fries are not going to eat your food and the water will just get fouled up. Adult bettas can live up to 2 weeks without food, so I also do not feed the father yet. As soon as most of the fries start swimming diagonally, the yolk sacs will decrease and they'll be looking for food. If you haven't yet, it's now time to remove the father and break his fast. Betta fries are fragile for the first week, that any sudden water temperature changes, water movement, or any tiny increase of ammonia will kill them. On top of these challenges, do expect some fries to die off. Some will be born with defects, while others will refuse to eat. You may begin to experience fries vanishing, and if you're anything like me, I got frustrated because I couldn't figure the hows and whys. How is it possible for fries to magically disappear overnight? They're also too small to eat each other, and too small to jump out. So where did they go? Betta fries are so tiny that after death, their bodies can deteriorate completely overnight. If you look closely, you might get a glimpse of their 2 little black eyes, which are usually the last parts to melt off. When it comes to newly hatched fries and what to feed them, it's one of those things that you have to pick your poison. What I mean by that is, there are pros and cons to I think all of the food that we can feed them. I think the best source of fry food for the first week is infusoria. For one, they're free. Infusoria are tiny little creatures found in lakes, ponds, rivers, and even your established fish tanks. They are living microorganisms that wiggle around, which entices the fries to feed on them. I think they're the best food for the first week. Infusoria, however, stinks and smells to culture. It's mostly cultured indoor, and if you've already received complaints about your aquarium from your significant other, roommates, or your parents, trust me, culturing infusoria indoor will do it for them. Yolk is not the best, but is one of my personal favorite because it's affordable, easy, and if you freeze the unused portions, can make it last a long time. Now, if uneaten, egg yolk rots quickly, will foul up the water, and require immediate cleaning. Some fries might need training to eat egg yolk since it's not alive. I feed egg yolk with infusoria together. The thing about fish is, once you get a feeding frenzy going, they'll almost eat anything that can fit in their mouth. While eating live food, they'll chomp on egg yolk as well, and that is a good way to transition fries to get used to non-living food. I've not used microworms for over 10 years now, but when I did, fries loved them. Rumor has it that too much microworms will deform betta fries, and that has proven to be a fact for me. I've not done extensive research as to why, but feeding too much microworms affects the growth of my betta ventral fins. The ventral fins will either be really short and stumpy, or they'll have none at all. If you opt for microworms, I would recommend also feeding other sources at least once a day so that your fries aren't 100% on microworms. Nowadays, retail companies produces fry food powder, but I've never tried it and can't speak on it. For me at least, it just doesn't make financial sense to buy them. Let's move on to grow out food, which your fries should be at least 2 weeks by now. The weak fries should have died off, and most of your surviving fries should be double the size. Here's an advice: if you feed your fries 3 to 5 times daily, do small water changes daily, and keep the temperature at 80 degrees, they will grow amazingly fast. Moina and or Daphnia, if you're able to culture either one, they're a great source of fry food. Moina and Daphnia are water fleas. I know, the word flea alone deters everybody, but don't let that scare you. They're not going to latch on you, your fish, like cats or dogs. According to a research done by the University of Florida, Moina contains 50% or more in protein, and Daphnia with even higher amounts. They get their protein from feeding on algae, or as in Europe, you guys call it algae, which I think is grammatically correct. I still occasionally feed Moina to my juveniles, and they love eating them. I think they enjoy the hunting part more than the eating though. I can't think of any negative thing about Moina, but that maybe they're a little hard to get a hold of and raise. I love feeding bettas brine shrimps. They're small enough for fries, slow swimmers, and full of protein, but they can become cumbersome and expensive. With that said, after a month, it's time to introduce the fries to dry foods or homemade food. This will save you money. I'd like to take a step back to when the fries are 2 weeks old. It's imperative that the floor of the tank is siphoned and cleaned often. If there are any banana or almond leaves, remove them, as they will start to mold and create pus that may trap and kill the fries. I've tried drip systems before to constantly bring in fresh water, but that constant drip creates a little too much surface vibration and current, killing some of the fries. It's easier for me to siphon and then slowly add water back into the tank. Although all are born on the same day, some will be behind it as if they never grew. If there's room, it's a good idea to isolate the smaller bettas to help them grow. In my observation, this difference in growth occurs because of the lack of food. The larger ones tends to hog all the food, leaving very little or none for the smaller siblings. If we overfeed, we risk an ammonia spike. Once most of the bettas reaches 1 centimeter, air stones and sponge filters can be added using an air valve controller to create little turbulence. Do keep in mind that bettas naturally come from slow to no flow water systems. If fed 2 to 3 times daily and fresh water is added 2 to 3 times a week, fries should reach at least 1.5 to 2 centimeter by month 2. At this point, they'll look like miniature adults. Males will have longer ventral fins and more intense colors. However, nowadays, breeders have done such a good job breeding that females have just as much fancy colors as the males do. I primarily spawn plackets or short-tailed bettas, so it's much harder to tell the males from the females. If you've made it to this point, it's now time to think about what you're going to do with all the bettas. Being that I spawned for retail purposes, I cull at 2 weeks, 2 months, and at 3 months. I cull for defects, short bodies, and poor colorations. I separate my bettas into 3 groups, groups A, B, and C classes. A classes are the ones that I keep for future breeding purposes, and also sell on my website. Most retail stores are not interested in A classes, since majority of their customers are not willing to pay $30 or more for a Betta. B classes all go to retail stores, and C classes are kept for another month to see if they're late bloomers. Sometimes, C classes colors will come in and mature to become B or A class bettas. That's all I have for you in this chapter. Happy Betta keeping.